Welcome to Novel Love Hearing. Get ready for heart-pounding action, thrilling adventures with fresh and unique elements, a touch of romance, and a dash of harem. Everything you're craving is right here. We're excited to have you join us on this journey. So come along to Novel Love Hearing, we're waiting for you. As a small favor, please consider sharing Novel Love Hearing with your friends, family, in YouTube comments, on Discord, Reddit, or anywhere else you hang out online. Happy listening, and enjoy the ride. Chapter 104. Watching zombie movies in the apocalypse offers an immersive experience. For a long time, the structure of the stellar train was essentially fixed. Unless there was new population growth. After consuming 32,000 units of iron ore to equip the two newly added carriages with level 3 armor, Chen Ming turned his attention to the cost of upgrading from level 3 to level 4 armor. Upgrading from level 3 to level 4 armor required 30,000 units of iron ore. The stellar train currently had 13 carriages plus a locomotive, making a total of 14. Upgrading all of them to level 4 would consume 420,000 units of iron ore. Seeing this number, Chen Ming's mouth twitched slightly. Although he had known the price beforehand, it still stung when it came time to upgrade. The cost was simply too high. But this iron ore had to be spent. Soon. All 13 carriages and the locomotive of the stellar train were upgraded to level 4 armor. The price to upgrade from level 4 to level 5 armor was a whopping 50,000 units of iron ore per carriage, totaling 700,000 units. After another 700,000 units of iron ore were spent, the train's armor successfully reached level 5. The once astronomical number of iron ore units in the train panel almost instantly shrank from 3.654 million to 1.652 million. But it wasn't over yet. He had once said that he wouldn't take a single step toward the Kunlun Mountains until the armor reached level 6. Without level 6 armor, venturing into the green zone would feel utterly unsafe. Upgrading one carriage from level 5 to level 6 armor required a staggering 100,000 units of iron ore. After spending 1.4 million units of iron ore, only 252,000 units remained. It was almost like returning to poverty overnight. Chen Ming stepped out of the train compartment, leaning on his cane as he stood on the wasteland, gazing at the heavily armored train before him with pride. The sense of security provided by level 6 armor was unmatched by any other accessory. With this, even in the green zone, he could move unhindered. No monster could stop him. What had he spent so many days in the Iron Ridge wasteland for, if not this? And after reaching level 6 armor, the green tier accessory carriage steel armor, which had consumed the most resources, finally unlocked its first level 5 supermodel effect. Carriage steel armor level 5 supermodel effect, immunity to corrosion from liquids, mist, swamps, etc. This effect was quite good. During his first encounter with that level 3 spider boss, some venom had accidentally come into contact with the train during the fight, causing a slight energy leak. Although it wasn't much and didn't cause any major issues, it still took a lot of time and effort to troubleshoot. With this supermodel effect, he wouldn't have to worry about corrosion from spitting or spraying monsters in the future. Nice. Phew, Chen Ming let out a long breath and looked at the remaining 252,000 units of iron ore. He hadn't yet upgraded the accessories that could be crafted after reaching level 3 train, and upgrading to level 4 train would require 10,000 units of level 2 iron ore, equivalent to 100,000 units. The remaining iron ore simply wasn't enough. But it didn't matter. Level 6 armor might sound down to earth, but those 4 words meant he could now mine freely in the green zone. Why stay in the Iron Ridge wasteland? The green zone had more high-grade ore. He could always find mines once he got to the green zone. In the meantime, he had mined quite a bit of copper ore, amassing a reserve of 710,000 units in the train. His 40-tube cherry blossom rocket launcher, which he had crafted but never fired, would finally get its chance. Once in the green zone, he'd find a boss to test it on. His rocket launcher was still at level 1. In contrast, the 4 makeshift heavy machine guns had already been upgraded to level 5. Then he turned his attention to the regional leaderboard. Iron Ridge Wasteland Power Value Ranking, First Place, Stellar Train, Level 3 Train, Power Value 5,412. Second Place, Survival Train, Level 3 Train, Power Value 2,789. Third Place, Xuangai Train, Level 3 Train, Power Value 2,621. Fourth Place, Xian Train, Level 3 Train, Power Value 2,212. Fifth Place, the base value for a Level 3 train was 500 points. Each survivor taken in by the train added 1 point. His survivors had contributed 1,012 points. The total level of his accessories was 313, adding 3,130 points. He had 2 red high-quality accessories, adding 200 points. He had a total of 57 supermodel effects, adding 570 points. The main reason for his high score was the total level of his accessories. His total accessory level was 313, far exceeding the requirement of 80 for upgrading to a level 4 train. This massive overflow was why he had achieved a score that a level 3 train shouldn't logically reach. His score was more than double that of the second-place train. The discussion on the train radio about this was also intense. Bastard train, listen up, brothers, let's do the math. The scoring algorithm for trains is transparent, right? There's no way points just magically increase by hundreds or thousands. If the score went up, it's either because of more slaves, higher accessory levels, or more supermodel effects. But Stellar Train's score of 5,412 is completely unreasonable. Accessory levels are basically capped at level 3, and at most, you can get a yellow tier accessory to level 5. But the number of yellow tier accessories you can craft at level 3 train is limited. Even if you crafted all of them, how many levels would that add? It's not like Stellar Train has a ton of blueprints for yellow tier accessories, right? Okay, even if that's the case. Let's say he has 20. That's a lot, right? Even if he maxed them all out, that's only 60 levels, or 600 points. So where the hell did his 5,000 plus points come from? Infinite Train. Could it be from slaves? Bastard Train, you're nuts if you think you can stuff 5,000 slaves into a train. Do you even know how quickly that would bankrupt you? Could you even sustain that many slaves? You'd need to mine every single day, and we all know how hard it is to find survivors in the ruins of Ping City. Finding 5,000 survivors is just a pipe dream. Zen Train, alright, no need to argue. I think the conductor of the Stellar Train, though we've never met, must be a brave and resourceful person with unparalleled methods. It's only natural that he's developing faster than the rest of us. Bloodthirsty Mad Bull Train, hey, I remember you. Weren't you the one who said you wanted to confront the Stellar Train and see if he dared to speak up in front of you? Zen Train. You've got the wrong person. Really? Chen Meng glanced at the chat logs on the train radio and pulled out a small notebook from the drawer. On it was written, Zen Train, arrogant tone, wanted to confront me with his train, asked if I dared to speak up in front of him. He hadn't misremembered. He clearly remembered this. It had only been a little over a month, and this guy's attitude seemed to have improved a lot. He wasn't as boastful as before. Indeed. In the apocalypse, people grow quickly, even their temperaments. He shook his head with a smile, said nothing more, and tucked the notebook back into the drawer. He leaned back in his chair, propping his feet on the control panel, and leisurely lit a cigarette. Picking up the remote, he prepared to find another zombie movie to watch. Watching zombie movies in the apocalypse offered an immersive experience. Wait. He glanced at the targeting radar screen, which showed a small corpse tide passing by 7,000 meters to the left. Perfect timing. Grabbing the walkie-talkie, he said, "Biaozi, take some men on the off-road motorcycles and capture a few zombies." Got it. Half an hour later. Biaozi returned triumphantly on the off-road motorcycle, with a level 10 refrigerator tied to the back. Inside the refrigerator were 4 or 5 level 1 zombies. Following Lord Ming's orders, they secured these bloodied, white-eyed, constantly howling zombies to the windows of the locomotive. Since there were no chains or other convenient means to secure them, Biaozi and the others had to do it themselves, letting the zombies stand on their shoulders while they held onto the zombies' legs. This way, the upper bodies of the zombies appeared at the windows of the locomotive, continuously pounding on the glass. While capturing the zombies, he had used a handheld zombie perception blocker issued by Lord Meng, so the corpse tide hadn't been disturbed. They had taken the zombies unnoticed. Inside the train compartment, it was morning, and sunlight filtered into the compartment, creating an atmosphere of utmost tranquility and warmth. But then... roar. A piercing roar suddenly shattered the peace. A horrifying, bloodied face appeared at the window, its pale, lifeless complexion and bloodshot eyes glaring with murderous intent at Chen Meng inside the compartment. The zombie began pounding on the glass, leaving bloody handprints on the window. The once warm atmosphere in the compartment vanished, replaced by a sense of impending danger. Even the sunlight now seemed like a harbinger of doom. Chen Meng, sitting at the control panel, turned pale. A surge of fear and despair overwhelmed him, and he curled up in his chair, pulling a blanket over himself. Then, trembling, he picked up the remote and started playing a zombie movie on the screen. Roar. The roar of the zombie in the movie and the roar of the zombie outside the window seemed to synchronize, creating a uniquely immersive viewing experience. This was the feeling. Only this way could he truly appreciate the unique charm of zombie movies. An hour and a half later. Outside the train, Biaozi's legs were shaking like a sieve. The zombie standing on his shoulders looked bewildered. It was so heavy. Finally. He received Lord Ming's command to end the ordeal. Just as he was about to pull out a train blade fragment to kill the zombie lunging at him, he received another order from Lord Mang. Lord Mang told him to keep the zombies, stuff them back into the refrigerator, and make sure they didn't starve. They'd be needed next time. Do zombies eat bread slices? Biaozi looked at the zombie in deep thought. If they didn't eat bread, what then? Use the corpses of other monsters. That could work. There was some corpse meat stored in the train, but these zombies had a professional ethic. They didn't eat their own kind. Better try feeding them bread first. Hesitantly, he pulled out a bread slice from his pocket and tossed it into the mouth of the zombie he was stepping on. Crunch, crunch. Hey, it ate it quite happily. Bread slices would do. Although he didn't know why Lord Ming was keeping these zombies, as the train conductor, Lord Ming had a higher perspective and a longer vision. If he was keeping them, they must be useful. Maybe they'd play a role in some grand plan later. For example, he still didn't know what the maze built by Li Shiji was for. But Lord Ming seemed to take it seriously. Because Lord Ming valued it, when Li Shiji came to ask for manpower, he agreed without hesitation. What Lord Ming valued, he valued. Soon. The next day arrived. Early morning, the sky was overcast, and a light rain had fallen the previous night. Although the rain had stopped by morning, the weather still looked gloomy, but the air smelled sweet. All the slaves stood nervously and uneasily in order on the wasteland. They looked at the group of armed thugs standing below the train, along with Biaozi and Lao. These two were the ones they had seen the most in recent days, while Lord Meng, the train conductor, they had only seen a few times. Just then, a man in a suit walked from the rear of the train to the top of the carriage. Leaning on his cane, he looked down at all of them. For a moment, everyone's breath seemed to stop. This was Lord Meng, the conductor of the stellar train and their leader. So handsome, Zhang-san, who stood out in the crowd, couldn't help but tighten her grip on higher clothes and whisper. Indeed, he was quite handsome. Uncle Lee couldn't help but sigh. Lord Meng naturally exuded an indescribable air of authority. He had met other train conductors before, and many of them had a certain air of petty triumph, but Lord Meng never had that. Plus, the suit he wore looked expensive and impeccably tailored. The imposing train beneath his feet added to his awe-inspiring presence. With the wasteland as the backdrop, he gave off the aura of a king in the apocalypse. Back on Master Kun's train, he had never thought of standing out, but here, under Lord Meng, he truly wanted to rise. Don't worry, Uncle Lee, I believe one day. Before he could finish, Uncle Lee quickly covered the young man's mouth, his eyes filled with panic and fear as he hissed, Are you out of your mind? Why don't you just drape me in a Dr. Egan robe while you're at it? The young man broke free and shook his head helplessly. Uncle Lee, what are you thinking? I may have high expectations for you, but not that high. I was just saying that even though we're standing here like ants now, I believe one day you'll be like Biaoj and train conductor Zhu, standing below the train when Lord Ming speaks. Phew, you scared me. Chapter 105 Yes, we are finally no longer slaves. The next moment, Chen Meng's voice echoed through the external sound system of the stellar train, reaching everyone's ears. There were no pleasantries or unnecessary words. It was less of a speech and more of a declaration. From today onwards, the stellar train will undergo comprehensive reforms. From now on, there will no longer be the term slave or thug. Perhaps in this apocalypse, all train conductors have referred to you as slaves, and perhaps you have long accepted this title. But from now on, in my eyes, you are not slaves without human rights. As long as you are willing to work hard, you can still realize your value in this apocalypse. You will have the right to marry and have children, and you can even form your own family of 3 within the train. The stellar train will not tolerate any worthless parasites, but it will also never let down anyone who contributes to the train. Standing atop the train car, Chen Meng looked at the sea of people before him, paused for a moment, and then continued calmly. You will no longer be slaves, but train residents. Thugs will no longer be thugs, but guardians. Positions and benefits will be separated. There can be many types of positions, but there are only 6 types of benefits. Each position will enjoy different benefits. The lowest benefit, Level 3 resident benefit, 10 slices of bread and 2 bottles of mineral water daily, living in the refrigerator. Level 2 resident benefit, 20 slices of bread and 4 bottles of mineral water daily, living in the train car. Level 1 resident benefit, daily food supply remains the same, still living in the train car, with the number of meat coupons earned determined by the daily mining output. For every 10 units of resource or mined, 1 meat coupon is earned. Any excess can be carried over to the next day unsettled in whole numbers. Level 3 advanced talent benefit, daily food supply to satiety, with 2 meat coupons earned each day. Level 2 advanced talent benefit, food supply to satiety, with 3 meat coupons earned each day. Level 1 Advanced Talent Benefit, 5 meat coupons earned each day. Chen Meng looked at the crowd, leaning on his cane with one hand, and continued. All residents will be promoted based on their mining output. If they have no other special skills, their position will remain as residents, with the highest being Level 1 Resident Benefit. Residents who sell meat will enjoy Level 3 Resident Benefit and can be promoted based on the number of meat coupons they earn, up to Level 1 Resident Benefit. Biaozi, Laju. Here. Biaozi and Laju, standing below the train, quickly responded with serious expressions. You too will enjoy Level 1 Advanced Talent Benefit. The remaining 8 Guardians will enjoy Level 2 Advanced Talent Benefit, and the 20 new Guardians to be recruited will enjoy Level 3 Advanced Talent Benefit. Meat coupons can not only be used to buy meat but also to purchase a variety of goods within the train. For example, cigarettes, snacks, food, daily necessities, and even a 100 square meter refrigerator as a wedding house, train tokens, and benefit promotions. In the future, anyone who makes a contribution will be rewarded with a certain number of meat coupons. This is what I, Chen Meng, can give you. As the stellar train develops, all benefits will be correspondingly increased. The remaining details will be explained by Laju. With that, Chen Meng didn't linger any longer. He turned and returned to his train compartment, sitting down on a chair and letting out a long sigh. Looking out the window at the crowd of slaves, he smiled with satisfaction. He had been discussing this train reform system with Laju for days. This was a relatively good solution. In the original train plan, there were 2 major issues. First, once slaves reached Level 1 benefit, there was no further room for advancement, which somewhat dampened their enthusiasm for work. However, they couldn't be allowed to advance further, as the next step would be the thug's benefit. After all, they couldn't have slaves living in the thug car, could they? Secondly, the only way the train currently rewarded people was by increasing their benefits. But the magnitude of different contributions varied. They couldn't just keep increasing benefits every time. And if Laju made a significant contribution in the future, how would they reward him? How would they increase his benefits further? In other words, there was nothing left to reward. For a leader, having nothing left to reward a subordinate who has made a contribution is an extremely dangerous signal. At this point, a form of currency was necessary. Thus, the meat coupon was born. Once the meat coupon became the currency, its function as a means to buy meat became its least significant role. The meat-selling residents and the stellar train served as anchors, much like how paper currency is anchored by gold and government bonds. And he no longer needed to worry about having nothing left to reward. The authority over the meat coupon was entirely in his hands. Although slaves could only rise to Level 1 resident benefit, they could continue to earn meat coupons, allowing them to exchange for a 100 square meter house and even benefit promotions. The meat-selling residents would no longer be as they were before but would have more freedom to trade under the market economy. Everyone could set their own price based on their appearance, skills, or even emotional value. For example, one woman might charge 3 coupons, while another might charge 5. Under this system, the train's production efficiency would be higher than under the slave system, and everyone's work enthusiasm would be greater than before. In the previous slave system, all slaves had vacant eyes, completely unaware of what tomorrow would bring, only knowing to work. But with this new system, everyone had a goal. He had placed many good items in the store. With his left hand, he created meat coupons and distributed them through benefits. With his right hand, he reclaimed the meat coupons through the meat coupon store. It was like passing from the left hand to the right hand, but the enthusiasm of everyone in the train would be mobilized. This method of motivating people was far more sophisticated than the previous system of communal rewards, but special times call for special measures. The stellar train currently had absolute internal dominance and external supremacy, and with no shortage of supplies, it could implement this system. Other trains. Who had the time to think about these things? They were too busy figuring out where to mine tomorrow. He was quite satisfied with the system he had designed, even though there were still some shortcomings. But any system starts as a prototype and gradually becomes standardized. No group's system is perfect from the beginning. Level 3 Advanced Talent Benefit costs 200 meat coupons? After Laju finished speaking, all the slaves gathered around the train, looking at the various product prices posted on the large notices outside the train cars. A resident with Level 1 slave benefit, his eyes filled with shock, muttered as he counted on his fingers. I currently have Level 1 slave benefit, earning 1 meat coupon per day. That means in 200 days, I can be promoted to Level 3 Advanced Talent Benefit, after which I'll earn 2 meat coupons per day. I'll break even in 100 days. After that, it's pure profit of 2 meat coupons per day. In a year, that's 600 meat coupons, so. Still a slave benefit? A slave next to him nudged the man who was talking to himself, also unable to take his eyes off the large notices posted outside the train. Lord Meng already said we're residents now. Oh right, residents. The man awkwardly smiled, still not quite used to it. Inside the train compartment, Chen Meng looked at Lao and said seriously, there will definitely be areas that need to be addressed as this system is put into practice, such as the pricing of goods. You need to keep a close eye on these things in the coming days. Understood? Understood. Lao nodded seriously, then asked, Lord Meng, what about Jichaku and those celebrities, and Li Shiji? What benefits do they get? Chen Meng thought for a moment before replying, Jichaku and Li Shiji will get level 3 advanced talent benefit and will be assigned to those 2 advanced talent cars. As for the celebrities, just give them level 3 resident benefit. After all, they're celebrities. They won't set low prices for themselves. Alright, one more thing. Lao hesitated before speaking in a low voice, Lord Meng, didn't you say last time that Jichaku would be rewarded to the slaves who performed well? But all the slaves who performed well are goblins, and they don't mess with women. Besides them, no one else has touched Jichaku. Chen Meng nodded casually, got it. Have her come over later. Yes. Today, all slaves were resting, and everyone was eagerly looking at the dazzling array of product listings. Hubby, work hard mining so you can buy us a house, okay? In the crowd, a young couple, the girl looked at the refrigerator listed for 1,000 meat coupons in the product list, her eyes sparkling with excitement. One day, we'll have our own house in the stellar train, right? The boy's face turned grim, and he didn't respond. He just hoped this was a dream, and when he woke up, everything would return to normal. Human rights? Residence? He didn't want any of that. He just wanted to be a slave. A happy slave, with food every day, not worrying about safety or monsters. Wasn't that great? Before the apocalypse, he worked overtime like crazy just to buy a house and get married. Finally, the apocalypse came, and he didn't have to worry about buying a house anymore. But now, how had things turned out that he had to buy a house again? This was insane. It's the apocalypse, and he still has to buy a house? Was he cursed to be forever tied to buying a house? Even if he died by crashing into the train right now, would he still have to buy a house in hell? Was he destined to buy this damn house? Previously, the train rule was that everyone had to mine at least 10 units per day. Now, if they wanted to buy a house, they'd have to work longer hours to earn more meat coupons. Hubby, is that not okay? Sigh. The man took a deep breath, forced a smile, and patted his girlfriend's head. Of course, it's okay. I knew you'd be the best. The girl's face was full of longing. Lord Meng is so great. Other train conductors call us slaves, but Lord Meng calls us residents, and he even gives us the chance to buy a house. Hubby, it's so great, we're finally not slaves anymore. The man remained silent for a long time before finally gritting his teeth and saying word by word, yes, we're finally not slaves anymore. Yes, their status wasn't that of slaves anymore. But why did he feel even more like a slave than before? In a daze, he looked at another middle-aged couple in the crowd. The middle-aged woman seemed very happy, and the middle-aged man happened to look at him at the same time. Their eyes met. Both saw the despair in each other's eyes. But the man looked at the various products in the product list and suddenly smiled helplessly. If he could really have his own house in a stellar train, it would actually be quite nice. In the apocalypse, being able to live with someone you love and are familiar with, that didn't seem so bad. TSK. Lying in his chair inside the train compartment, Chen Meng watched the emotional journey of the young couple outside the window and couldn't help but shake his head and laugh. You know, that young couple isn't even that deeply in love, yet the boy naturally took on the task of buying a house. If they were truly deeply in love, he would have just given them a refrigerator. His Doomsday marriage certificate had been piling up for days, and he still hadn't found the right people to use it on. Meanwhile, Jichaku, kneeling beside him, remained silent. She knew Lord Meng wasn't really expecting her to answer. Chen Meng then shifted his gaze away from the young couple. He didn't care what they were thinking. All he knew was that the boy would now work even harder at mining. As for the girl, she would still have to meet the daily quota of at least 10 units, but she didn't seem willing to do more. Finally, he could put this matter to rest. The next step was to prepare to head to the Green Zone, the Shape Lane, to complete the S-rank class change mission. He glanced at Jichaku kneeling beside him. Changed into another outfit again? There's a dress hanging there for you. Really? Jichaku's eyes lit up as she looked up at the low-cut evening gown hanging on the clothes rack. Go change into it. Chen Meng picked up the remote and projected Jichaku's past variety show onto the screen. After she changed, he looked her up and down and chuckled, sexy enough. Lord Meng likes it, that's all that matters. This dress was something he had spent 500 units of wood to create, a high-precision clothes. Only after wearing it did she start to resemble a celebrity again. Then I'll begin, Lord Mang. No. In the crowd, the middle-aged man finally couldn't take it anymore. He roared at his wife beside him, "Are you never going to stop? What the hell is your obsession with houses? You lived in your mom's womb for 10 months, did that give you muscle memory? Before the apocalypse, I worked for 20 years to finally pay off the mortgage. Now you want me to buy a house again? I'm over 40, I can't work like I used to. Mining 10 units of iron ore a day is already a lot for me. I can't do it anymore. Let's get a divorce." Chapter 106, Checkmate, Bro. Divorce. The middle-aged woman beside him flashed a look of anger. "Fine, let's separate then. After we split, I'll go into the meat trade. I'll save up meat coupons to buy a house myself. As long as you can accept your wife selling meat. Can you?" The middle-aged man, who had been furious just moments ago, froze in place, his mouth opening and closing without a word. Checkmate, bro. A man who had been watching the spectacle couldn't help but chime in, "If your wife really starts selling meat, I'll be the first to support her. Get lost." The middle-aged man turned his head and shouted at the man, then took a deep breath to suppress his emotions, forcing out a strained smile. "What nonsense are you talking, honey? Of course, I'll buy it. I'll dig more iron ore from now on. That's more like it. Everything's gone to chaos." A young female starlet sighed as she looked at the crowd, pondering how much she should price herself. After a moment, she turned to another woman beside her. "Sister, what do you think is a fair price for us?" "I'm planning to price myself at 1 meat coupon." "That cheap?" The woman blinked, her eyes filled with slyness. "My quality is definitely higher than those other women. At 1 meat coupon, who could compete with me? After all, I'm a star. In a short time, I'll save up 50 meat coupons to buy a high-quality outfit. Just now, I saw Sister Choo Choo walk out of Lord Meng's room wearing that dress. You didn't see it, but it looked incredibly elegant, as if Jichaku had returned to the days before the apocalypse to attend a gala. Once I put on that outfit, I'll set a higher price and take the high-end route. I'll earn even more then." "Ah." The young starlet who had asked the question was momentarily stunned, murmuring, "You all have such a good business sense. Of course, just learn from us." The sun reached its zenith. Biaozi stood on the wasteland, coldly addressing the 70 to 80 people before him. "Among you, 21 will become guardians of the stellar train, enjoying the benefits of level 3 high-tier personnel. Only the capable will rise. Next, all of you will enter the combat training virtual space and engage in life and death battles on the arena. The last 21 standing will become guardians of the stellar train. The final 2 will continue to duel, with the last survivor becoming the captain of the second and third guardian teams. Understood?" As his words fell, the crowd roared in unison, "Understood." Biaozi nodded in satisfaction. Just then, Shan Maozi approached, about to place his hand on Biaozi's arm, but Biaozi sidestepped and frowned, brushing off non-existent dust from his clothes. "Speak if you have something to say. Don't touch me. Don't dirty my new clothes." Lord Meng had crafted 2 sets of new clothes for all members of the stellar train. The ordinary residents' clothes were orange-red, a color personally chosen by Lord Meng, with a logo based on the character Meng on the left sleeve. They also had different numerical codes, 1, 2, 3, representing different levels of resident benefits. The upper part was a windbreaker, and the lower part was windproof pants, made of a special material that provided excellent insulation. After last night's light rain, the temperature had dropped significantly, but wearing these clothes, the cold was much less noticeable. The Guardians' clothes were less loose, resembling pre-apocalypse tactical gear with numerous tactical pockets, giving them a sharp, capable appearance. Biaozi quite liked his outfit. His only regret was that it was the standard version. He planned to save up 50 meat coupons to buy a high-precision version of the outfit, which would look even cooler. Shan Maozi spoke softly, timidly, "I don't want to be a captain. I want to stay in the first team." "What?" Biaozi was momentarily stunned. "No one said you'd be a captain. How could Shan Maozi be a captain? The captains of the second and third teams were his people. That would be madness. He wouldn't dare place his own men in those positions." Then it's nothing. The other brothers were saying I might be the new captain. I thought. Well, it's good. I'm not cut out to be a captain. It's fine. Biaoj, you go ahead with your work. I'll go eat first." Biaozi casually glanced at Shan Maozi's retreating figure before turning back to the crowd. "All of you, listen up. Enter the train carriages in order." As the sky gradually darkened, inside the temporarily constructed 14th carriage, there was only a single refrigerator with its door wide open. Lord Meng, Li Shiji, with dark circles under his eyes, stood nearby, His voice tinged with exhaustion and excitement. The maze is fully set up. No matter who comes, they'll be trapped for at least half an hour. No exceptions. This is the entrance. The end point is a refrigerator at the very end. As per your instructions, the walls around it are marked with the word endpoint, so it's unmistakable. But there are still 7 people inside who haven't come out. Ahem. Laju stepped in, slightly embarrassed. Lord Mang, today I gathered a group to assist Li Shiji in building the maze. But a few got lost and are still trapped inside. It might take them some time to get out. Never mind them. Chen Mang, leaning on his cane inside the carriage, frowned. This maze is crucial for the development of the stellar train. Find 10 more people and have them enter the maze to find the endpoint. Understood. Soon, 10 residents were found and ushered into the refrigerator. An hour later. Inside the carriage. Chen Ming casually tossed the magazine in his hand to Laju. I'm going to sleep. Tell me the fastest completion time tomorrow morning. We'll head to the green zone, Shape Lane, tomorrow. Once someone comes out, clear the maze as soon as possible. I need it. Yes. On Shape Lane. Inside the Kinglong train station next to a level 2 iron ore mine, a bald man with dark circles under his eyes stared blankly at the intercom on the control panel. He felt like he had turned into a longing stone. It had been over 30 days. Was there really no one brave enough to attempt the S-rank job change quest for the mechanical train? He had been thinking about it for over 30 days, unable to sleep well, and now he had dark circles under his eyes. Mom. Are you sure the intercom didn't ring while I was asleep? No. The train's eye responded quickly, its voice mechanical and crisp. This is the 8th time you've asked me that. I'm an eye. As long as the train's energy isn't interrupted, I don't enter sleep mode. Ugh. The bald man sighed deeply, then listlessly got up from the control panel, leaning back in his chair and staring at the ceiling, muttering, Heavens, please send me a brave soul. I really need those 30 Murphy stones. The moon set, the stars dimmed, and the sky soon brightened. When Chen Meng woke up, he stretched lazily, feeling refreshed as he looked at the calendar on the wall, his eyes filled with anticipation. Today was the day they would head to Shape Lane. Shape Lane and Kunlun Mountains were both green zones. But when he had last visited Kunlun Mountains, the resource detection radar hadn't detected any resource mines, not even a lumber yard. Though the mountains were covered in forests, the trees didn't yield wood when cut down. So he doubted. Were there even any resource mines in Kunlun Mountains? He still needed a batch of iron ore for upgrading accessories and for the consumption of upgrading to a level 4 train. Shape Lane was his best, or rather, his only option. As for the S-rank job change quest, it could only be done in Shape Lane. Regardless of the difficulty, the job change quest could only be done in Shape Lane. Successfully changing jobs wouldn't immediately upgrade the train to level 4. Only after meeting all the conditions for upgrading to a level 4 train would the train ascend to level 4, and only then would the special features of the job change truly manifest. After that, it would be impossible to return to lower level zones, such as the White Zone, Iron Ridge Wasteland. When he had first crossed over to this world, he had appeared in Iron Ridge Wasteland and had stayed there for over 2 months, almost growing attached to it. When he had first arrived, it was just the beginning of autumn, and now winter was approaching. Fortunately, with the central air conditioning and the clothes he had crafted, no one on the train would freeze to death. Just then, Laju came to report the list of those who had completed the maze yesterday. The fastest had taken about 4.5 hours to find the endpoint, while the slowest had just come out this morning, his spirit seemingly broken, his pupils unfocused and unable to converge. Everyone in the maze had been brought out by Li Shiji. Li Shiji had an exceptional sense of spatial awareness. The entire maze was clearly mapped out in his mind, making it as easy as walking through his own home. But it had been exhausting, as he had to search through dead ends for the lost residents, which was a tremendous physical task. Everything was ready, waiting only for the final push. All the residents and guardians had returned to their positions on the stellar train. Chen Ming sat at the control panel, gazing at the wasteland ahead, deep in thought. They were about to leave the wasteland plain, and he needed to ensure there was nothing left undone. It would be hard to come back later. Ah! He found the young man who had given him the oxygen generator accessory blueprint in his private chat list and sent over the coordinates of 13 level 1 iron ore mines he had encountered. They were all level 1 iron ore mines, and he hadn't bothered to stop and mine them. But he thought the information would be quite valuable for a novice train. This way, when they ran out of mines to dig, they wouldn't have to wander aimlessly through the wilderness. They could just head to these coordinates. Ah! On the wasteland. Inside the swiftly moving protagonist train, a young man who had been staring anxiously at the resource detection radar, hoping for an iron ore mine to appear, suddenly saw the coordinates of 13 iron ore mines sent by the stellar train in the private chat box of the train radio. His body froze in place. His lips even trembled slightly. Bro, did something happen to you? Send me your coordinates. My train's firepower is decent. I'll see if I can help you. Most likely. The stellar train had hit a snag, encountered a major danger, and was on the verge of destruction, which was why they had sent him the coordinates of these 13 iron ore mines. Otherwise, such a valuable asset in the wasteland wouldn't have been given away so suddenly. Even if he had helped the stellar train before, this was an excessive reward, wasn't it? And the stellar train replied quickly. Stellar train, I'm heading to a high-level zone. These coordinates are useless to me now, so I'm giving them to you. The young man was momentarily stunned, then quickly realized what was happening. He jumped up in excitement, quickly expressing his gratitude, and then looked at the nearest coordinate. All his worries vanished. His eyes were filled with hope and excitement. Like the king of the pirates, he stood on the control panel, gazing at the empty wasteland ahead, and roared, forward. He knew it. The stellar train had the aura of a protagonist. Once you latched onto the protagonist's coattails, you wouldn't be left wanting. See, these 13 level 1 iron ore mine coordinates. Their value had to be higher than a mere oxygen generator, right? For a long time to come. He wouldn't have to roam the wasteland searching for mines. Even if some of the mines were occupied by monsters, he could always move on to the next one. By the time he finished mining the 13th mine, the first one would have respawned. Perhaps, before heading to the high-level zones, he wouldn't need to search for mines anymore. These 13 would be more than enough. Chen Meng glanced at the message of gratitude from the protagonist train without paying much attention. The oxygen generator accessory the young man had given him had been a great help, and he didn't mind giving something back in return. And then, he opened the small notebook in the drawer, which contained 2 sentences. Chi Shui train, malicious speculation. Zen train, arrogant tone, wanted to collide with my train, and asked if I dared speak loudly in front of him. Immediately, he opened the train radio and pinned a message at the top. Stellar train, please have the train conductors of Chi Shui and Zen trains contact me. I want to make a deal with you. Soon. He didn't look at the commotion his appearance caused in the train radio, but instead turned to the private chat from the Zen train's train conductor. That was fast. Zen train, bro, there are too many people outside. I'm kneeling before you. I was wrong. Can you let me off the hook? I admit I was a bit too arrogant back then. I had just blown up 2 carriages that day, and I was in a bad mood. I got carried away. Stellar train, what are you talking about, friend? Just send me your coordinates. I only want to make a deal with you. Zen train, bro, my dear brother, I really know I was wrong. Chapter 107, Mom, I can't tell, I really can't tell. Stellar train, are you really not going to trade face to face? I want to see if you really have 3 heads and 6 arms, to see how it is that you claim I wouldn't dare speak loudly in front of you. Maybe I really wouldn't dare. Zen train, bro, my dear brother, I truly know I was wrong. Chen Ming lit a cigarette with a sense of boredom, leaned back in his chair, and glanced at the private messages from the soda train pleading for mercy before shutting off the train radio. Too soft. He really wanted to drive his train and see whose train could outlast whom in a collision. Since both had completely softened, he lost interest in teasing them further. He sat back and pondered for a while. After confirming there was nothing left for him in the Iron Ridge wasteland, he took a deep breath, looked straight ahead, and slowly pushed the control lever. Shaplane, here I come. Last time he ventured into a high-level area, he was chased back. This time, after completing the S-level difficulty profession change task, his first move would be to rush to the Kunlun Mountains area and wipe out the rock snake and that tyrant king dragon. Just then. Boom. A bolt of lightning streaked across the dark, cloudy sky, followed by a loud thunderclap, as a fierce wind began to howl. Chen Meng glanced out the window to check the wind direction, suddenly thought of something, and grinned as he pushed the control lever to its limit. Well then. Let's soar high. The next moment. Boom. With the roar of the engine, the stellar train, resembling a long dragon, gradually accelerated through the storm towards the edge of the wasteland, until a wind firewheel suddenly seemed to ignite, engulfed in flames. Almost instantly. All wind firewheels were ignited, wrapped in thick, orange flames. The train's speed was significantly boosted, its already fast pace increasing slightly. From a distance, it looked like a hell train charging out of a sea of fire, its blazing wind firewheels spinning rapidly in the storm, creating a stark contrast of extreme ferocity. 2 hours later, the stellar train arrived at the border between the Iron Ridge wasteland and the Shaplane, where a massive light screen stood between the 2 areas, displaying 4 large glowing characters. Shaplane. Moreover, on the control panel screen, a line of bright red text scrolled across the top. Upcoming area is a green zone, shape lane. Maximum possible presence of level 6 monsters, current train level is 3, high danger coefficient, proceed with caution. Chen Ming chuckled as he looked at the message on the screen. Last time he ventured towards the Kunlun Mountains, the message was strongly advise retreat. Now, it was just a caution to proceed carefully. He had already been as cautious as possible. He had upgraded his armor to level 6 before coming here, and he believed no one in the white zones was more cautious than him. Without hesitation, he pushed the control lever again. The train, without stopping, drove straight through the light screen and smoothly entered the shape lane. Upon entering, what greeted him was a field of grass, somewhat yellowed due to the season. The resource detection radar and targeting radar showed no high-level monsters or mines in the vicinity. Only a few scattered level 3 monsters. Not even a single level 4 monster was in sight. Which meant it was absolutely safe within a 10-kilometer radius. This confirmed a suspicion in his mind, not all green zones were as absurd as the Kunlun Mountains area. Otherwise, how could any train survive in green zones? All trains entering green zones for the first time must be level 3. A normal level 3 train would almost certainly perish in an environment like the Kunlun Mountains area. This place was relatively safe. He didn't venture further but immediately looked at the S-level difficulty profession change task on the mechanical train panel, took a deep breath, and with slight nervousness, chose to accept it. Although he believed he was perfectly prepared. But no one could say for sure how intelligent that robot really was. The next moment, a panel floated in front of him. You have confirmed the stellar train's profession change direction as mechanical train, and successfully accepted the S-level difficulty profession change task. Within 1 hour, a robot will land at the starting point of your train's maze. Please wait patiently. Phew. Chen Meng exhaled slightly nervously. After all, it was an S-level difficulty profession change task. If he failed this time, his only remaining option would be that D-level difficulty profession change task. Meanwhile, on the other side of the shape lane. Ha 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 ha. An exaggerated laughter echoed inside the Azure Dragon train, where a bald man with striking dark circles under his eyes, hands on hips, looked excitedly at the walkie-talkie in his hand flashing red, and said passionately. Finally, I've waited for this. I knew it, this world never lacks hard-headed fools. Mom. After taking a deep breath, he resolutely looked at the control panel screen. Wish me luck. When I come back with 30 Murphy stones, I'll use 2 on you to awaken a level 5 supermodel effect. Good luck. The eye's mechanical voice sounded in the cabin. Then, without hesitation, the man firmly pressed the red button on his walkie-talkie, and his body suddenly slumped into the chair, eyes closed. Clearly his consciousness had left his body. Inside the stellar train. Buzz buzz buzz. A sharp noise sounded above the stellar train, and then Chen Ming saw a huge drone flying over the stellar train, and his control panel screen was flashing red frantically. Do not attack, do not attack. This drone is a task objective, this drone is a task objective. Attack will result in task failure. Below the drone hung a square iron box. The next moment, the square iron box suddenly detached from the drone and fell heavily to the ground, its sides quickly spreading out to reveal a curled-up robot. Well, well. Chen Meng looked up at the drone flying away and muttered in awe, I thought it would be something like a portal. Turns out it's just drone delivery? Meanwhile, the robot that had fallen to the ground had already gotten up and, as if knowing the route, quickly ran towards the entrance of the maze in the 14th temporarily built carriage without any pause. The moment it landed, the countdown had already begun. Phew. Chen Meng exhaled lightly, looking at the half-hour countdown on the control panel screen and the real-time maze footage from the robot's perspective, slightly nervous as he began to watch. This robot perspective footage automatically appeared on the control panel screen after the task started, allowing him to directly observe the robot's way of navigating the maze. Wait. The robot, filled with excitement as it rushed into the maze, looked at the 100 square meter space before it, neatly arranged with 10 refrigerators, and suddenly felt confused. 100 square meter space? He remembered there wasn't such a large space in the train, was there? He suddenly turned towards the maze entrance, only to realize that this 100 square meter space was actually inside a refrigerator? Wait, a refrigerator? Whose damn refrigerator is 100 square meters? He couldn't help but roar loudly. His voice, amplified by the robot's speakers, lacked emotion but carried a mechanical tone. But there was no time left to think about this. Only half an hour remained. He looked at the 10 refrigerators in the space before him, a sense of unease rising within him, and quickly walked towards the first refrigerator on the left. Just as he was about to open the door and step in, he saw a piece of paper stuck on it. It read, As expected, when faced with choices, you still instinctively choose the first one on the left, right? Actually, the first one on the right is the correct path. The man was momentarily stunned. He instinctively opened the refrigerator door, and sure enough, behind it was another 100 square meter space, still neatly arranged with 3 refrigerators. Mom, any ideas? Luckily, the train auxiliary eye had descended into this robot body with him. Soon, a crisp and decisive voice sounded in his ear. Nope. Then what the hell are you good for? Exclamation mark. The man clenched his teeth and pondered for a while, just about to stubbornly charge into this refrigerator again, when he suddenly noticed a very hidden refrigerator in the corner. Only a few beams of light shone on the 10 refrigerators, creating a play of light and shadow that made him overlook the hidden refrigerator in the corner. He suddenly laughed and strode towards the hidden refrigerator in the corner. The rule was that a path from the start to the finish must be set, so the train conductor must have hidden the correct path. It was just unfortunate that, although well hidden, he had still found it. He wasn't sure what was going on with his train, why it had a refrigerator with such a large space. But he could do it. Fortunately, with a robot body, he wouldn't feel tired. He ran towards the refrigerator in the corner and pushed the door open, and sure enough, behind it was another 100 square meter space. And in the deepest corner of this huge space, there was still a refrigerator. He headed straight for it again. Opening this refrigerator door, it was yet another 100 square meter space, and in the far right corner, there was still a refrigerator. Oh no! The man suddenly felt an intense sense of unease, a glimmer of despair in his eyes as he looked at the refrigerator about 10 meters away, feeling something was off, and prepared to run towards it. Look to your left, there's a refrigerator there. Hearing the eye's voice, the man quickly turned his head to the left, and sure enough, a refrigerator was quietly placed there, and he couldn't help but grin. What a blind spot. Lucky I have my mom with me. He ran towards the refrigerator on the left and pushed the door open. Inside was still 100 square meter space, and in the corner, there was still a refrigerator. He ran over and yanked open the refrigerator door, but this time, instead of a space, it was just an ordinary refrigerator. Inside the refrigerator was an A4 paper. Did you happily think you'd discovered some secret? Pure clown. Bang. The man angrily slammed the refrigerator door shut, turned around, and walked back to the refrigerator door he came from, returning to the previous layer, and ran towards the refrigerator in the far right corner again. This time, opening the refrigerator door, behind it was still that huge space, and in the deepest corner, there was still a refrigerator. After entering 3 huge refrigerators in a row, the man once again pulled open the refrigerator in the corner, and this time, it was still an ordinary refrigerator. On the shelf inside was a bottle of cola and an A4 paper. Thirsty? Have a drink? Look at you, I told you the first refrigerator on the right was the correct path, but you just had to run off to that hidden little refrigerator in the corner. People always think that what they've secretly discovered is the absolutely correct answer. Good boy, quickly run back to the first layer, time's running out. Go to hell. The man, on the verge of a breakdown, slammed the refrigerator door shut, turned around, and ran back towards the way he came. Finally, when he returned to the first layer and immediately went to the first refrigerator on the right, there was still a piece of A4 paper stuck on it. You believe everything people say? No brain. And this time, the man charged in without a care. Since there were only these 10 refrigerators on the first layer, he just needed to try each one, as long as he ran fast enough. 10 minutes later, the man, on the verge of a breakdown, found himself going in circles and ending up back on the first layer, with the 10 refrigerators neatly arranged in the middle, illuminated by the beams, and the hidden refrigerator in the corner. Even the notes on the refrigerators were the same. This isn't the first layer, it's a replicated maze. The eye's voice sounded again in his ear. The man quickly turned around to look behind him, and sure enough, he didn't see the maze entrance, which meant he was still on the path of the first refrigerator on the right in the first layer. He took a deep breath and strode towards the first refrigerator on the left. It's okay, there are just many paths, he'll explore each one. Soon, the first refrigerator door opened, and an A4 paper fell out, with one word written on it. Idiot. Opening the second refrigerator door, it was still an ordinary refrigerator, and another A4 paper fell out, with another word written on it. Moron. Opening all 10 refrigerator doors, they were all ordinary refrigerators, and even formed a sentence. Idiot, go back, wrong way. The man suddenly laughed in extreme anger, said nothing more, and quickly ran back towards the first layer path. Finally, with only 30 seconds left on the countdown, the man stumbled and opened a refrigerator door, with the last bit of hope in his eyes, looking into the space inside the refrigerator. If there was no finish line in this refrigerator, his task would be a complete failure. He could only hope for a miracle, that this refrigerator would lead to the finish line he had been desperately searching for. And then, he saw dozens of refrigerators quietly placed in various corners of the space. His body trembled slightly, the last glimmer of hope in his eyes instantly disappeared, and he suddenly gave a bitter laugh, his body going limp as he knelt on the ground. Looking at the dozens of refrigerators before him, and at the nearly finished countdown, his eyes filled with despair. He completely broke down mentally, slammed his head on the ground, tears in his eyes, his voice filled with intense sobbing and despairing screams. I can't tell. Mom, I can't tell, I really can't tell. I really can't tell, Mom, I want to go home. Chapter 108, Congratulations, you have officially transformed into a mechanical train. Soon. The crisp and mechanical voice of the eye echoed in his ears. Mom can't tell the difference either. At that moment, the final 30-second countdown was about to end. The bald man, whose nerves were on the verge of collapse, seemed to resign himself to fate. He slowly rose from his kneeling position, his eyes filled with despair as he suddenly let out a bitter laugh at the sight of the dozens of refrigerators before him. The next moment, the robot suddenly seemed to lose control and fell to the ground. The countdown had ended. The man's consciousness was also pulled away at that instant. Huh? Chen Meng, who had been sitting in the control room witnessing everything, hadn't even had time to reflect on what he'd seen. His eyes suddenly lit up as he leaned out to look at the sky. No drones were approaching. In other words, this robot was now his spoils of war? Without hesitation, he grabbed the walkie-talkie. Lashu, tell Li Shiji to dismantle this labyrinth. Have him neatly store all the refrigerators in one fridge and bring that robot out. Understood. Lashu's voice quickly came through the walkie-talkie. As the saying goes, the one who tied the bell must untie it. Only Li Shiji could dismantle this labyrinth. Anyone else who entered wouldn't even manage to dismantle it. They'd be lucky not to get dismantled themselves. These refrigerators had cost him a whopping 480,000 units of iron ore. Now, it seemed like it was all worth it. Even if he sent these refrigerators to the geothermal furnace for recycling, he could still recover about half of the cost. However, he planned to recycle the ordinary refrigerators and keep the level 10 ones. They would be useful later. It would be a shame to recycle them. They could be used as storage boxes or for the single-person rooms of residents. 100 square meters. That's not small. A perfectly square, zero shared space area. This was true zero shared space, unlike in the previous world where many real estate developers included balconies and terraces in their so-called zero shared space calculations. Placing a small refrigerator, a single bed, and some daily necessities collected during the apocalypse would make it a cozy little home. The bald man's consciousness returned to the Azure Dragon. His eyes were vacant as he leaned back in his chair, staring blankly into the distance, as if he had lost his soul. After who knows how long, the bald man finally snapped out of it. He looked at the lines on the screen. Lines he had been unwilling to face. Challenge failed. But you are the first train conductor to reach the fortuitous encounter of the underwater labyrinth. In recognition of your courage and spirit of exploration, you will still receive a consolation prize. The bald man stared at these two lines, and at the badge-like object that had somehow appeared on the control panel. His eyes gradually regained some light. He shook his head, reached out, and picked up the badge, letting out a bitter laugh as if resigning himself to fate. Ah, well. At least there's a consolation prize. However, the next moment, as he held the badge in his hand, a panel appeared before him. Special item, Badge of the Brave. Item effect, when wearing this badge, it will soothe your fear in desperate situations and fill you with courage. The bald man remained silent for a long time before casually tossing the badge onto the table. What the hell was the point of this damn thing? When he's in a desperate situation, does he need courage? He needs a damn solution. In his dazed state, he turned his head to look at the refrigerator in the corner of the train compartment. Among the 17 white components that a level 1 train could craft, the highest upgrade was level 2. He had crafted several and placed them in the train. This was normal. Although he hadn't upgraded the refrigerator to the stage where it possessed the supermodel effect, he could roughly guess what it would be. The level 5 or level 10 supermodel effect of the refrigerator would grant it a space of 100 square meters. This wasn't hard to guess. It made sense. Upgrading from a refrigerator to a cold storage unit was entirely understandable. But that's a refrigerator. A single component. It's not like upgrading one refrigerator to level 10 would automatically upgrade all the others to level 10. He had seen at least 70 or 80 refrigerators with such a large space. How much Murphy stone would that consume? How could anyone obtain so much Murphy stone? Does that make sense? Murphy stone, a special item that could break through level caps. Of course, even if you used Murphy stone, you still had to pay the resources required for the upgrade. He didn't know about higher level regions, But he knew that in the green zones, this item was extremely rare. Otherwise, on the shape lane supermodel effect quantity leaderboard, the competition wouldn't be so fierce. From 1st to 100th place, the gaps were minimal. Only yellow-grade vehicle components could be upgraded to level 5 to unlock the supermodel effect. The number of yellow-grade components people had was pretty much the same. It wouldn't happen. Wait. The bald man suddenly straightened up, a thought flashing through his mind. His eyes gleamed with disbelief. He had once seen a level 2 train in the Kunlun Mountains region. That train had left him in awe. It could move freely on nearly vertical cliffs. At the time, he wondered if that person had used a large amount of Murphy Stone to upgrade the spider leg component to a high level. Maybe it was some big shot's relative. But thinking about it, that didn't seem realistic. After all, that was Murphy Stone. What big shot would be willing to use such resources to assist their relatives? Even if it were their own child, wouldn't it be safer to just have them stay in their own train? And now, these two trains had one thing in common. They had both consumed a large amount of Murphy Stone. Could they be the same train? The man frowned, racking his brain for a while before shaking his head. He was certain they weren't the same train. The train he had seen in the Kunlun Mountains region had 2 open-air carriages at the back and didn't have so many machine guns. Yes. Although he hadn't had time to observe the interior of the train due to the urgency, the 10 heavy machine guns mounted on the ceiling of the carriage housing the labyrinth had left a deep impression on him. His own train was level 5, with over 600 slaves on board. But he had never thought of installing 10 heavy machine guns inside the carriage. Just how afraid were they of a slave rebellion? Even if they were truly afraid, 1 heavy machine gun would be enough. Did they really need 10? Were they worried they wouldn't kill fast enough to feel secure? Based on the labyrinth and his observations of this train, he quickly formed a first impression of the train's conductor. Extremely insecure, tyrannical towards the slaves, constantly provoking rebellions that required severe suppression, possessing a large amount of Murphy Stone, enjoying mocking others, and being extremely cunning. The bald man shook his head, trying to calm himself down. He picked up the badge he had tossed onto the control panel earlier and pinned it to his chest. What a pity. He didn't know which region the other party was from. If only they were from one of the white zones next to the shape lane. His mission failure meant that the other party's S-rank difficulty mechanical class change mission had succeeded. When they entered the green zone of shape lane, they would become the first. And the only one he had seen. With S-rank potential as a mechanical train. At that time, he would know the name of this train. Hee. The bald man couldn't help but grin at the thought. If they really came to the shape lane, then he wouldn't be blamed for bullying the weak. No matter how much S-rank potential they had, they were still a level 3 train, at most just upgraded to level 4. He was a level 5 train. Bullying a level 4 train would be a sure victory. The man's smile instantly vanished. He stood there expressionless, silent. A train that had upgraded so many refrigerators. Wouldn't they have upgraded other components as well? Moreover, after completing the S-rank difficulty mechanical class change mission, they would also receive a red grade, large-scale destructive weapon. It really would be a sure victory. Mom, is there really no such thing as a Murphy Stone mine? Soon. The electronic mechanical voice of the eye echoed in the carriage. Murphy Stone is a special item. It can only be obtained through certain fortuitous encounters or by defeating rare bosses, and so on. It does not form a mine. This is the information currently in my database. However, when you encounter other keywords or venture into higher level regions in the future, my database may update with different information. If there's no Murphy Stone mine, how could they have upgraded so many refrigerators? Could they have cheated? This is the real apocalypse, not a multiplayer online game manufactured by a company. There's no such thing as cheating. That's true. Meanwhile, inside the train, Li Shiji, who was tidying up the labyrinth, looked at the robot kneeling on the ground and let out a regretful sigh. Why didn't you take one more step? He walked to the front, opened the nearest refrigerator, and a piece of A4 paper slowly floated out. On it were written 3 sentences. The real end point is actually on the first floor. When you entered the labyrinth, there was a refrigerator placed against the wall on the far left of the entrance. That refrigerator is the end point, silly child. The end point is actually at the starting point. If the robot had taken one more step and opened the refrigerator to see these words on the A4 paper, it would have been quite amusing. As for the authenticity of these 3 sentences, of course, they were false. There were only 11 refrigerators on the first floor. There was no end point. However, if the robot had human-like thinking, it would likely have been on the verge of a mental breakdown by this point. Its perception, judgment, and even memory would have significantly declined. Upon seeing these 3 sentences, it might even have altered its own memory, truly believing that it had indeed seen a refrigerator placed against the wall on the far left of the entrance when it first entered the labyrinth. Even though the robot had already scanned the entire space upon entering. At this point, with human-like thinking, it would most likely start doubting itself. That's when things would have gotten really interesting. Especially with only a few minutes left on the countdown, when the robot hurried back to the first floor and found nothing in the far left corner. That's when the emotional breakdown would have peaked. This robot's strength was a bit lacking. Many of the traps he had set up hadn't even been triggered. What a pity. Li Shiji shook his head regretfully, then placed the robot inside a refrigerator and began clearing the labyrinth. Due to rule restrictions and the limited number of tools he could use, many of the plans he had in mind couldn't be realized. Otherwise, he would have electrified all the refrigerators, lowered the temperature to the minimum, and poured water into them before turning on the power, letting it freeze into ice. Even a robot would have slipped and fallen a few times. If he had access to projections, it would have been even more fun. Inside the stellar train, Chen Ming sat in his chair, looking at the semi-transparent virtual panel that had popped up before him. Congratulations. The stellar train has successfully completed the S-rank difficulty class change mission and has officially transformed into a mechanical train. Moreover, you are the first train conductor on the Shaplane to complete an S-rank difficulty class change mission. Your unknown component will be of red grade, and you will now randomly draw from the pool of large-scale heavy firepower red grade components. Drawn, red grade vehicle component ground burst missile. The next moment, at the very top of the train screen, a line of text framed in gold slowly scrolled by, accompanied by fireworks. At the same time, a voice echoed in the minds of all train conductors on the Shaplane. Shaplane Regional Broadcast, congratulations to the stellar train for successfully completing the S-rank difficulty mechanical train class change mission, becoming the first mechanical train on the Shaplane to complete an S-rank difficulty class change mission. Huh? Chen Ming's mouth slowly fell open as he stared at the three-dimensional image of the red-grade vehicle component ground burst missile on the train screen. It took him a while to regain his composure. Without hesitation, he spent 1 unit of iron ore to craft it, and then crafted another open-air carriage. This was one of the 12 components that a level 3 train could craft. The unknown component. The grade and name of this component would only be revealed after successfully completing the class change mission. Regardless of its grade, the crafting cost was only 1 unit of iron ore. Immediately after, Chen Ming jumped out of the train compartment and strode to the rear of the train, looking at the newly added open-air carriage. A missile, a full 8 meters long and over 2 meters wide, was tilted and placed in this open-air carriage, pointing straight at the sky. The entire body was black, with a white ring around the missile head and a red dot at the very center. It added a touch of cruel ferocity to the already imposing stellar train. If this ground-burst missile were to strike, everything within its blast radius would be obliterated. He stood there, leaning on his cane, looking up at the ground-burst missile that occupied an entire open-air carriage, quietly admiring it. The rain had stopped. A ray of sunlight broke through the clouds, falling directly on the missile. As if bestowing it with a noble mission. Making it appear particularly sacred and glaring in the dim ruins of the apocalypse, captivating anyone who laid eyes on it. This is good. Chen Ming's lips curled into a faint smile. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a cigarette, and lit it. He took a long drag, exhaling a puff of smoke. All the frustration and unease he had felt since arriving in this apocalyptic world seemed to dissipate with that puff of smoke. Chapter 109, The weak deserve to be humiliated. A cigarette burned to its end. Chen Ming lightly tapped his cane with his fingertip, and the ground-burst missile slowly retracted into the open-air carriage under the control of the lift platform. From the outside, it looked like an ordinary carriage, without even armor. He strode back into the train compartment. This carriage definitely needed armor. It would become his 14th official carriage. The carriage originally used to house the maze would be consumed by the geothermal furnace once Li Shiji finished dismantling it. Sitting in the train compartment, Chen Ming looked at the data of the ground-burst missile on the screen. Currently at level 1, it couldn't harm level 2 monsters. This was one of the most fundamental rules of this apocalyptic world: if you were outclassed in level, you couldn't deal damage. But if it were upgraded to level 6 and launched into the Kunlun Mountains, who knows what effect it would have. The level of all firepower accessories only determined whether they could break through the defense of higher-level monsters. The actual power depended on their quality and level. As the level of firepower accessories increased, their power generally increased accordingly. For example, the car blade, repeating ballista, and 40-tube cherry blossom rocket launcher. Even the makeshift heavy machine gun followed this rule. Although upgrading the heavy machine gun itself only increased its firing rate and range without increasing its power, the corresponding heavy machine gun bullet production line could produce more powerful high-level bullets after upgrading. At the same level, higher quality firepower accessories would definitely cause greater damage. For example, if both the car blade and the ground burst missile were level 10, the power of the former would be far inferior to the latter. For example, a level 10 car blade, according to the fundamental rules of this world, could break through the defense of a level 10 boss and deal damage. But it could only break through the defense. The actual damage dealt would depend on the power of the accessory. Facing a level 10 boss, it might not even be enough to scratch the surface. Phew. Chen Meng took a deep breath. The most important thing was that although the ground burst missile was a ground-to-ground missile, as long as the enemy's coordinates were known, it could be remotely launched for precise strikes. The range of the remote launch was 20 times that of the targeting radar. His targeting radar's range was currently 10,000 meters, so he could send this missile up to 200,000 meters to hit the enemy's head. The reason he had used 1 unit of iron ore to create this missile was mainly due to the benefits from his job transition mission. Normally, producing a level 1 ground burst missile required 10,000 units of copper ore. He glanced at the upgrade cost. Upgrading this accessory to level 2 required 50,000 units of iron ore, the most expensive he had ever seen. For red quality accessories like the wheel changer and geothermal furnace, the early upgrade costs were much lower. Time to go mining. At this point, Li Shiji had already cleared the maze, and the carriage had not been dismantled but was temporarily attached to the train. Upgrading to a level 4 train required 18 carriages. He didn't have enough carriages, so he would build a few more ordinary carriages later. If he dismantled it now and used the geothermal furnace to consume it, he would have to build another one later. Going back and forth would cost him 50 units of iron ore. Not much. But that's not how you live. Save where you should, spend where you must. Chen Ming slowly pushed the control lever. With the sound of gears turning and the roar of the engine, the train began to accelerate and head deep into the shape lane. First, find a few level 2 iron ore deposits, then successfully upgrade the stellar train to level 4. Only after reaching level 4 would the effects of transitioning to a mechanical train become apparent. After that, he would upgrade the ground burst missile and the open-air carriage. He currently had just over 250,000 units of iron ore. Copper ore was still plentiful, with 710,000 units. Half an hour later, Chen Meng's expression gradually darkened. The high level ore in the green zone was indeed more abundant. Along the way, he had encountered 3 level 2 iron ore deposits, 2 of which were 1,000 meters underground. But all 3 deposits were already claimed. There were trains nearby starting to mine them. Even the 2 deep underground deposits had trains already digging. In the white zone, he was the only train with the drill bit accessory. All the iron ore in the white zone was his, and no one competed with him. But in the green zone, many people went to the Kunlun Mountains area to find pangolin-like monsters to obtain the drill bit accessory. This made even the underground quite lively. Finally, after another 20 minutes of travel. Phew. Chen Meng let out a long sigh of relief. He finally saw 2 level 2 iron ore deposits 5,000 meters underground ahead. His brows relaxed, his luck wasn't too bad. Upgrading to a level 4 train required 100,000 units of iron ore. He currently had that amount in his train, but he didn't dare to use it. He needed to keep some in reserve for emergencies, such as food, sudden battles where accessories were damaged, producing mechanical nanite spiders, or creating energy stones. It was similar to how residents' spending power didn't depend on their current savings but on their expectations of future income. Only by staying near these 2 level 2 iron ore deposits and starting to mine them did he feel confident enough to consume the iron ore stored in his train. Without hesitation, the huge drill bit slowly extended from the front of the train and began to rotate rapidly, like a pangolin spirit possessing it. It quickly drilled a short, temporary tunnel, and the train quickly headed deep underground. Straight towards the 2 level 2 iron ore deposits. At that moment. Huh? Chen Ming suddenly frowned slightly. The targeting radar showed a level 4 train about 9,000 meters away, also heading towards the 2 level 2 iron ore deposits deep underground, moving much slower than him. His speed underground could reach 170 kilometers per hour. The other train's speed was just over 60 kilometers per hour. He glanced at the detailed accessory level information of the other train displayed on the targeting radar on the control screen. Unknown level 4 mechanical train, 19 carriages in total. The detailed accessories and levels of this train are as follows: green quality steel armor level 3 covering all carriages, yellow quality energy shield level 2 covering all carriages, blue quality Gatling guns, 6 in total, all level 5. It was almost as if the targeting radar showed what color the other train's underwear was. This was the supermodel effect of his level 10 targeting radar. If a train appeared within the radar's range, it would clearly display the accessories and their levels on the control screen. Chen Meng glanced at the information on the screen, expressionless, and pushed the control lever again without any intention of backing down. In fact, His speed even increased slightly. He and a level 4 train were heading towards the 2 level 2 iron ore deposits from different directions. His speed was faster. A few minutes later, he had successfully reached the 2 level 2 iron ore deposits in the cavern first. He let out a long sigh of relief. Good thing he was fast. The rule of the wasteland, first come, first served. At that moment, his train radio crackled faintly, and the screen flashed red. Forced private message from nearby train, get lost. Seeing this, Chen Meng, who was about to pick up the intercom to give Laju instructions, suddenly laughed. He looked at the red dot on the targeting radar, 3,000 meters away, crawling slowly deep underground. It seemed the other train's targeting radar range was only 3,000 meters. Without hesitation, he pushed the control lever again, heading straight towards the oncoming train deep underground. Speed reduced to the slowest. What's this guy's deal? Deep underground, in a level 4 train, a man looked at the red dot on the targeting radar moving rapidly towards his train, his face dark. I told him to get lost. Does he want to clash with me? He's a level 3 train. What gives him the guts to face me? Those were 2 level 2 iron ore deposits, not something a level 3 train should be meddling with. Telling him to get lost was completely justified. Though he didn't know why this train had such speed underground. But a flash of cruelty appeared in the man's eyes as he looked at the rapidly approaching red dot on the screen. He suddenly laughed. Remember, in the shape lane, the weak deserve to be humiliated. Lashing out in anger is just seeking death. Immediately, a light blue screen quickly covered the entire train, and on top of the carriages within the screen, the muzzles of 6 Hell Gatling guns began to rotate and warm up, ready to unleash a fierce and terrifying attack at any moment. And the red dot was getting closer and closer. The next moment, the soil in front of the train suddenly loosened, and countless fragments of rock became visible. A train with a high-speed drill bit appeared in front of him. The man grinned viciously and faced it head-on, as expected, even the energy shield. However, boom. When the 2 trains collided deep underground, the man's eyes flashed with horror, and he suddenly stood up from his chair. The 2 high-speed drill bits clashed, and his drill bit shattered instantly. The energy shield covering his entire train cracked upon contact with the other drill bit and was on the verge of breaking. How could this be? His level 3 armor plus level 2 energy shield had a total of level 5 defense. But why did it almost break upon contact with the drill bit? But there was no time to think about it now. The 6 level 5 Hell Gatling guns on top of the carriages began to rotate. As the copper ore in the train rapidly decreased, countless shells with orange trails completely enveloped the other train. 3 seconds later, the man eagerly looked at the smoke-filled tunnel ahead. That train should be blown up by now, right? However, the next moment, he saw the cracked energy shield shatter completely. The other train passed through the smoke unscathed and charged straight at his train. In the last moment before losing consciousness, he saw the armor on the front of his train completely powerless against the high-speed drill bit, and a piece of armor fragment shot towards his chest. The man sat at the control panel, looking down at the armor fragment that had pierced his chest. His vision gradually blurred until his consciousness completely faded. If only. If only. But there were no ifs. Boom. With the roar of the engine, Chen Ming pushed the control lever all the way, driving the drill bit deep into the front of the other train. Then he backed the train up a bit, casually lit a cigarette, and picked up the intercom. Open the hive mind. Biaozi, take some men and strip that train of its survivors, usable accessories, and anything else worth taking. Understood. Soon. 30 guards in black combat suits, led by Biaozi and armed with soaring dragon assault rifles, quickly jumped out of the carriage and ran towards the tunnel ahead, entering the completely wrecked train. Then, Biaozi's shouts echoed faintly inside the train. Don't move. Hands on your heads. 20 minutes later, Biaozi completed the mission perfectly, bringing back 400 survivors and a large amount of supplies, temporarily stored in a refrigerator. There were no removable accessories on that train, everything worth taking had been taken. Only an empty shell of a train remained. Normally, when the train conductor of a train dies, everyone in the train, whether thugs or slaves, wouldn't resist. After all, in the apocalypse, everyone was just trying to survive together. Who would be loyal to a train conductor? Once the train conductor was dead, why would they resist? Just join another train and keep living. And if the train that destroyed their original one was stronger, it would be even safer. But nothing in the world was absolute. What if the train conductor had relatives or children who wanted revenge? That could be extremely dangerous. So Biaozi and his men were very careful to avoid any unexpected incidents while searching the train, which could lead to disaster. These survivors were temporarily locked in 2 refrigerators. They would be thoroughly vetted to ensure none were relatives or children of the train conductor before proceeding. Once Biaozi and his men were back on the train, Chen Ming pushed the control lever again, retracted the drill bit, and spent 11,000 units of iron ore to upgrade the geothermal furnace to level 4 and activate it. The train slowly moved forward, opening its maw filled with countless gears. As the train advanced, the damaged level 4 train gradually shortened, and the sound of gears grinding against armor echoed through the tunnel. A minute later, only the stellar train remained in the tunnel. He switched back to the drill bit, reversed the control lever, and the drill bit headed towards the side of the tunnel, preparing to circle around and head back to the 2 level 2 iron ore deposits. Now the world was quiet. The control screen showed that consuming this level 4 train had yielded 70,000 units of iron ore. Not bad. Chen Meng smiled with satisfaction. The drill bit shattered the rock in front, and the train entered the cavern again, slowing down and stopping next to the 2 level 2 iron ore deposits. Chapter 110, My name is Li Yi, that kid calls me Uncle Li. 70,000 units of iron ore. That's equivalent to half of a level 2 iron ore mine. As expected of a level 4 train, it yielded far more iron ore than when he devoured Master Constrain engine back then. The geothermal furnace yields different amounts of iron ore when devouring various components. For example, devouring one of his own ordinary carriages could yield 50 units of iron ore, which is equivalent to getting half back. But devouring some ruined carriages or other components would yield much less. Still, it was essentially free loot, and it was more than enough. Especially since this train was also stocked with plenty of resources. 120,000 units of iron ore, 40,000 units of copper ore, 3,700 units of wood. 120,000 units of spider silk, 1 special item, 2 blueprints, several rifles and bullets. 16 packs of cigarettes, 2 bottles of beijiu, 3 cured pork ribs, and even a several 100-pound pig frozen in the refrigerator. Various daily necessities scavenged from city ruins. As the ancients said, it's indeed true. Standing outside the train in the cavern, Chen Meng listened to the sound of the underground river flowing nearby. The train's headlights illuminated the entire cavern space. He took the inventory list handed to him by Biaozi and let out a long, contemplative sigh. Killing and looting really was a great way to get rich. Of course. The amounts of iron ore and copper ore weren't huge. After all, these resources were necessities, and no one would stockpile too much of them on their train. They'd use what they had bit by bit, always trying to improve their train's capabilities. At most, they'd keep a few tens of thousands of units to maintain the train's daily operations. He had dug up 2 iron ore mines, and in terms of resource yield, it was definitely more than what was on this list. But the sheer variety was overwhelming. There was a bit of everything. Even spider silk. 120,000 units of it. This guy didn't even have spider leg components on his train, so why did he have so much spider silk? Who knows where he got it from? Probably slaughtered an entire nest of man-eating spiders. His spider legs hadn't been upgraded in a long time, and now the food was practically being served to him on a platter. He had no choice but to eat it. As for the rifles and bullets, he tossed them all into the geothermal furnace. The special items and blueprints were placed in the train's control room, and he'd take a closer look at them later. After pondering for a while, Chen Ming turned to Liu with a smile. Go ask the people below if there's any skilled cook among them. Keep this pig for now. In a few days, we'll head to Sand River City to see if we can find some vermicelli and cabbage. Let's treat everyone to some pork stew with vermicelli. Back in the Doomsday abyss, I promised everyone I'd make them chicken soup. But that chicken's been laying eggs like crazy, so I can't bear to kill it. We'll eat this pig instead. Everyone's been eating bread every day. It's time for a proper meal. No need to use any meat coupons. Everyone gets a share. Consider it a train benefit. Oh, and speaking of meat coupons, Chen Ming paused for a moment, his expression turning serious. When we first designed the concept of meat coupons, their only function was to buy meat. The whole store idea came later. Since meat coupons have essentially become a form of train currency, the name doesn't fit anymore. Let's change it to stellar coupons. And take those daily necessities we scavenged, sort through them, and put them in the store. Got it. I'll arrange it right away. Standing nearby, Liu nodded earnestly and quickly jotted down notes in his little notebook. After giving these instructions, Chen Meng glanced at the residents who had already started mining with pickaxes in hand. Without lingering further, he strode toward his train's control room. The stellar train would be mining here for the next few days. But right now, he needed to check out those special items and blueprints to see what effects they had, as well as upgrade the train to level 4. Pork stew with cabbage and vermicelli. As Liu watched Lord Ming's retreating figure, he couldn't help but swallow hard, his mouth watering slightly. His food rations on the stellar train were among the best, but even he had been eating GMO for every meal. In the apocalypse, being able to eat like this was something to be grateful for. He was quite content. But it did get a bit monotonous. Hearing the words pork stew with cabbage and vermicelli, both familiar and unfamiliar, made his mouth water instinctively. He could almost smell the aroma already. So good. Biaozi, standing nearby, also grinned dazedly. And with a steamed bun to soak up the broth, soft and fluffy, the cabbage, vermicelli, and pork all mixed together in your mouth. The taste. Damn, I can't think about it anymore. I can't wait to get to Sand River City. If I can't find cabbage and vermicelli there, I'll die there. You're really going to jinx it like that? La gave Biaozi a strange look. Alright, let's get to work. Go investigate the backgrounds of those survivors. Lord Meng didn't say to kill anyone this time, so the deputy train conductor and the thugs can stay. Find out the relationships between the rest of the people and the train conductor. After you're done interrogating them, I'll handle their arrangements. I need to check on how this statistical report is coming along. Damn, without a computer, compiling data for over 1,000 people is a massive headache. Biaozi glanced at Li Shiji in the distance. Why don't you ask that kid? He's pretty sharp. Maybe he has a solution. I already asked. What did he say? He said bugs are inevitable, and we just have to make do. Even with a computer, there'd still be bugs. Alright, I'm done talking about this. Laju waved his hand and walked off. I already have a rough idea. Time to get busy. My name is Li Yi. Before the apocalypse, I was an executive at a company, earning $1 million a year. 10 times what an average person made in a year. I considered myself highly skilled in management, especially at the middle management level, where I had ample experience. After the apocalypse hit, I was captured by several trains and turned into a slave. In Master Kun's slave carriage, I had already lost all hope for the future. The cities were gone. The wilderness was almost devoid of any fellow survivors. Even if a train temporarily protected my life, I had no idea where to go or what to do next. I had no home, and the world had abandoned me. Only when mining did I feel a faint sense of purpose. Then, I saw a man whose aura was completely different from mine. This man showed no despair for the future, and he was unlike the other slaves who wandered aimlessly. His eyes were fierce, his expression cold, as he claimed the only straw mat in the train. This man didn't seem to be crushed by the apocalypse. I felt a spark of curiosity toward him. When I saw a burly man try to pick a fight with him and get killed in just a few seconds, I looked away. For some reason, when my eyes met his, they burned as if I were staring directly at the sun. He was wild. And he had an unshakable sense of purpose. Even in the face of the apocalypse and the loss of his home, he didn't despair. I considered myself part of the educated class, but it took me a few seconds to find the right word to describe him. Then, it felt like time sped up. Master Kun's train was suddenly destroyed, and this man established the stellar train. I was among the first slaves to join this train. I watched as this newborn train grew at an astonishing rate. I saw the number of carriages increase, and various firepower components were added. I saw the number of slaves on the train grow rapidly. Before I knew it, the stellar train had become a behemoth in the wilderness. I saw the slaves' rations go from 2 moldy slices of bread a day to 20 soft, filled slices. Life on the train kept getting better. I saw the train go from level 1 to level 2, then to level 3, and even reach the advanced region of the Shay Plain. I witnessed the stellar train's growth. I tried many ways to stand out from the slaves, to become a middle manager on this train. I believed this train would go far, perhaps even become a Noah's Ark in the apocalypse, carrying the remnants of human civilization through this hopeless, despair-filled world. Maybe this train was humanity's last hope. I wanted to contribute to the stellar train's development, to join its construction process, and to follow that man. Working with someone like him made me feel a glimmer of hope for the future. I tried many ways to stand out. I even pre-selected my own loyal subordinates for when I became a middle manager. I wanted to prove my worth by suppressing rebellious slaves, to make a name for myself at the reform meeting when we left the wilderness, too. But all of it failed. The kid next to me often pressured me, making me regret telling him my plans and aspirations. If I hadn't told him, no one would have pressured me, and I wouldn't feel embarrassed when my plans failed. I questioned myself countless times, wondering if I really had no talent. I even considered just staying as a slave on the train. Oh, wait. A resident. The train underwent reforms. But I never expected that I'd eventually become a middle manager on the stellar train. The plan had succeeded. Except, it wasn't my plan that succeeded. It was that kid's plan. My name is Li Yi. That kid calls me Uncle Lee.